no one really can give you permission to be a writer except yourself. Number one. And number two, stop looking for that approval to begin with, because really no one's going to give it to you. You have to get out there and just pitch and create your own writing samples and build yourself up and go after it, versus hoping that somebody's going to magically see your worth and magically tell you, oh yeah, you're a great writer. I am drinking my overpriced coffee and I am returning this mouse to Amazon. Today, I landed one of the biggest retainer clients that I've ever had. So it got me thinking, okay, where did I start with all of this? How did I get to this point? Because the problem is a lot of people don't think that it is possible to become a writer. And the number one reason I think that is because your identity isn't lined up with being a writer. And I know that was the case for me. So I was in a 9-to-5 job. I was a salesperson, and I was basically moonlighting as a writer and trying to pursue my passions as a writer on the side without anyone knowing, without admitting it to anyone, without even admitting that I wanted to write, okay? Like, I was so embarrassed that I even had this dream. So it's so crazy that I'm finally here, because I've come such a long way of having that total imposter syndrome and actually being ashamed. And I think that's something very specific to writers. For some reason, the thought of calling myself a writer was super cringe and embarrassing. And I want to tell you one story. One of my past jobs, I'll never forget, I was taking fiction writing courses on the side. I was living in New York City at the time, and there's all these classes you can take in New York City. So I'm taking a fiction writing workshop after my 9-to-5 job. I'm literally leaving my 9-to-5 job and going to this writers group at night. And I opened up to one of my colleagues who I actually told. I actually opened up to him and said, like, I'm interested in writing. I know I'm in sales and this is my day job, but I've always wanted to be a writer, and I take a fiction writing course at night. So this was a startup company, and at some point within the company, in startups, every person does their own, every person kind of wears multiple hats. So if you're in sales, you might wind up doing something in marketing. So it's kind of all hands on deck. And I'll never forget, something came up with needing writing, and the coworker who I had told, hey, I am actually interested in writing, he brought it up and kind of like called me out in front of everybody and was like, you know, Christine's a writer. And the fact that he said Christine's a writer, I wanted to die, because it's like, who says I'm a writer? I'm not a writer. I want to write. I went to school for writing, but I've never been paid to write anything. I've never been published. So him even calling me out as a writer was super cringe, and I felt so exposed. And long story short, I'll never forget, they were like, all right, yeah, I guess Christine can do the writing on this, but really, when you're in sales, nobody wants you to focus on anything other than sales. So I guess they kind of pretended to entertain the idea. And I'll never forget, I wrote a list of blog post titles, and I said, if we want to put articles on our website and we want to really pursue this whole like content marketing thing, we need to come up with blog posts. And at the time, I didn't know anything really about marketing and content writing and copywriting. I just saw what other people were doing online, and I tried proposing that idea. And I listed a bunch of titles, and I said, like, we could write a title like this, 5 things to do if X. And I'll never forget, I rattled off all these titles, and my coworkers, it was 2 of them, we were out to lunch, and they just looked at me like, And I remember thinking, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. I just got turned down. They think I suck. They think I'm horrible. And looking back on it, it's like I realized I was trying so hard to get people's acceptance. I was trying really hard for people to give me permission. I wanted somebody to approve of my whole writing dream. And that mentality, and this was years before I actually wound up becoming a copywriter, but that kind of shot me down and took me down a few pegs. And I realized that mentality is really what kept me stuck. Number one is like not even wanting to admit that I wanted to be a writer, not even admitting that that was my dream. That's number one, is like my identity was so not even wrapped up in it that I couldn't even admit it. And then number 2 was hoping that somebody would give me permission, approve of me, publish me, whatever. And the thing with freelance writing is that I love freelance writing because you don't have to really be chosen. There's very few gatekeepers. You can create your own online presence and recreate yourself as a writer, and then just go out and start pitching those services. There's not many industries that you could really do that. And it wasn't available. It wasn't as accessible as it is now, like back in, the day, right? So I encourage you, if you want to be a writer, but you're saying to yourself, well, I know I'm not a writer and I can't be a writer. And if you're like me, where you kind of have that gap between what you want and what you're actually willing to go after and embody as your identity, just know that no one really can give you permission to be a writer except yourself. Number one. And number two, stop looking for that approval to begin with, because really no one's going to give it to you. You have to get out there and just pitch and, create your own writing samples and build yourself up and go after it, versus hoping that somebody's going to magically see your worth and magically tell you, oh yeah, you're a great writer. Because even to this day, after I'm signing these huge contracts and I get monthly recurring work and I have a full-time freelance income, and I no longer rely on a 9-to-5, even now I still have people who give me harsh feedback, who tell me that my writing's not for them, who never answer my cold pitches. So you're never going to hit this point where someone tells you you're good enough. You just have to keep going after it and giving yourself permission and not giving up. And that's ultimately what bridges the gap. Because I was in that role where I was, your identity is super wrapped up in whatever your office job is. It's like, oh, well, I'm just the salesperson. I don't want to admit that I have dreams of doing X, Y, and Z. And then maybe you have family and friends who also want to keep you in that box of what you do. And if you tell them that you want to pursue writing, they're probably not going to be supportive. I mean, I've definitely had people make some really snide remarks like, oh, that's what you're doing? I didn't think of you that way. Like, people love continuity. People love to put people in boxes because it's just less brain work. So the minute you tell them that you want to branch out and do something new, don't expect anybody to clap for you or think what you're doing is cool. And that's actually a huge reason why I love coming on here and talking to you guys and doing the YouTube thing and getting on Instagram, because it's like, I don't really know anyone. I'm not surrounded by anyone who actually is in this online business world and writes on the internet for a living. So not a lot of people get it, and you guys do get it. Hi from Brazil. Hi. Hi from New Jersey. Hi from the Whole Foods parking lot in New Jersey. That's what's cool. There's so many people that want to do this from all over the world. It's also why I'm attending that funnel hacking event that I posted in my story. Go look at that, Funnel Hacking Live with Russell Brunson. It's not even necessarily because I think it's going to be some like epic life-changing thing, but sometimes you just have to take action in accordance to who you want to be versus who you are. So who I am is somebody who rarely likes to leave the house. I'm introverted. I feel so drained by any social interaction, but I know a big part of like me leveling up is going to be going to events and meeting people and getting in rooms with people who are doing better than me, who have higher incomes than me, all that stuff. So I registered for this expensive ass event, Funnel Hacking Live. If anyone is going, please let me know so we can meet up in person. I'm going with Janine Kelback, she teaches nurse writers and she has a writing agency. We're going to go together. So it's cool to kind of bridge that gap and meet people on the internet in person. But the reason I'm going is because I'm making decisions in accordance with who I want to be. And I want to be somebody who goes out and meets people and does the appropriate networking and levels up my business skills and learns the new stuff, even though that's not really super comfortable for me. Anyway, I wanted to pop on. I'm having such a hard time focusing. I have writing to do, but all I want to do is go and do my Amazon returns and get coffee instead. Someone says, will you save this live to watch later? Yes, I will, because I haven't gone live in such a long time. I'll probably upload this to YouTube and edit out some of my rambling so it's easier to watch. It was so nice seeing you all.